Welcome, everyone, to Techdaily.ai. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined today by our resident expert, Sophia.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here.
Before we get into today's topic, you can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit techdaily.ai to get started today.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
Okay, so we're back. And for the last 10 years or so, if you listen to anyone in the tech industry talk about hiring, they were basically just screaming about a talent shortage.
Oh yeah, nonstop.
Right. The narrative was just, we need more bodies, give us more graduates, more boot camp certificates, just like get people in the door.
Fill the seats.
Exactly. But today, the people guarding your digital life and really the digital assets of every major corporation out there, they are completely changing their tune.
They really are, yeah.
There's this recent survey data of, I think it was 947 global chief information security officers. And 60% of them say their biggest nightmare right now is not having the right staff.
Which is a huge shift.
Right. Only 40% are still worried about, not having enough staff. So they aren't staring at empty chairs anymore. They're staring at the people currently sitting in those chairs, wondering if they're actually capable of fighting the next wave of threats.
It is a massive, historic pivot in talent strategy. And to really understand why this is happening right now, you kind of have to look at what is fundamentally changing underneath the surface of every corporate network.
The technology itself.
Exactly. The rapid deployment of artificial intelligence and, the looming shadow of quantum computing, these aren't just new software updates. They are completely rewiring how business gets done.
And how it gets attacked.
Yes. More importantly, how it gets attacked. I mean, we are talking about automated threat actors that adapt at machine speed, and the potential for quantum systems to just eventually break traditional encryption.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
It is, and you just cannot tackle those kinds of dynamic, mathematically complex threats with legacy skill sets.
Right. It's like if you're building a smart home, right?
Yeah.
And you have 50 expert bricklayers.
Which is great for the walls.
Sure, yeah. But having 50 bricklayers doesn't help you at all if what you actually need is a specialized electrician. You have the headcount, but you just completely lack the capability for the actual job at hand.
That is the perfect way to look at it. There's this major voice in the space, Rob T. Lee, and he recently pointed out that leaders are finally realizing you simply cannot hire your way to success anymore.
But wait, why not, though? I mean, if you have the budget, why not just go out and hire the right electricians for that smart home?
Because the highly skilled professionals who actually understand this new AI-integrated tech stack, they are incredibly scarce.
Like unicorns.
Absolute unicorns right now. We are talking about people who don't just know how to configure a firewall, but who understand the underlying logic of large language models and how those models can be manipulated to bypass that firewall.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the ones who do exist, they are prohibitively expensive for your average mid-sized company or even, large enterprises.
They just get scooped up by the tech giants.
Exactly. You can't just buy a whole new team. You're stuck trying to figure out how to take your existing personnel and elevate them to meet this completely unprecedented level of threat.
So if you're listening to this and you're a manager or a director right now, and you can't just go out and, buy your way out of this problem, how do you even begin to figure out what skills your current team has, let alone what they actually need to be learning?
Well, you've hit on the exact reason why the hiring and talent management market is just a complete mess right now.
It really is.
Yeah. Marling Engel recently highlighted this staggering disconnect in how companies evaluate talent. I mean, if you've looked at a job board recently, you have probably seen this exact phenomenon.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Companies are posting what look like entry-level positions, but they are attaching incredibly advanced, highly specialized requirements to them.
Oh, I see this all the time. It'll be a posting for a junior analyst, but it requires 10 years of experience in quantum cryptography.
Right.
And master-level proficiency in 3 programming languages. For a junior role.
Exactly. They know they need these high-level capabilities to deal with complex new threats, but corporate structures just haven't adapted. So hiring managers are forced to try and cram these advanced requirements into lower-tier budgetary buckets.
Or totally outdated job descriptions.
Yes. And this desperation leads to a phenomenon Engel calls title drift.
Title drift?
Yeah. People are claiming titles or, being given titles for jobs they aren't actually doing on a day-to-day basis.
Just to make the org chart look better.
Pretty much. Engel uses a brilliant comparison for this. Imagine if you did this in medicine. You wouldn't call a pediatrician a heart surgeon just because they wanted the title, right?
No, obviously not.
Or because a hospital HR department needed to fill a quota to secure funding. But in technology, and especially in security, this happens constantly.
That's wild.
Someone is handed the title of security architect, which gives the board of directors peace of mind. But what that person is actually doing every single day is just like basic network monitoring.
Wow. I mean, if you have a pediatrician trying to perform a bypass, the patient literally dies on the table.
Exactly.
And if you have someone with an inflated title trying to architect a defense against an AI-driven ransomware attack, the company's entire database gets held hostage.
And that is the terrifying reality of title drift. It completely obscures the actual capabilities of your team.
So you have a false sense of security.
100%. When a crisis hits, you look at your org chart and think, great, we have 3 architects and 2 senior engineers, but in reality, you just have 5 people who know how to read automated alert logs.
So how do you fix that? How do you force honesty back into the org chart?
Well, the proposed solution that's gaining the most traction is the adoption of standardized frameworks.
Like what?
So in the US, for example, the major one is the NICE framework that stands for the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. Instead of relying on, vague job titles, this framework provides a comprehensive dictionary of specific tasks, knowledge areas, and skills.
So instead of telling HR, hey, I need a cyber guy, you use this dictionary.
Precisely. It gives the hiring manager, the HR department, and the job seeker a common language. A leader can map out the actual daily tasks that need to be done to defend their specific network, look at the NICE framework, and realize, wait, I don't actually need to hire a security architect. What the framework shows I actually need is a SOC analyst.
Right. And just to clarify for anyone listening who isn't, living these acronyms every day, a SOC analyst is someone in the Security Operations Center. Right?
Yes.
The people actively watching the network traffic for daily threats.
Correct. The people on the front lines responding to alerts. By using the framework, you correctly size the position and the required skills to the actual day-to-day operational needs.
Rather than just inflating a title and hoping for the best.
Right.
But wait, hold on. I get the appeal of a common language, definitely. But if we force everyone into these highly standardized, rigid boxes, aren't we going to lose the dynamic edge we need?
How do you mean?
Well, you just said AI is creating these hyper-adaptive, constantly shifting threats, right?
Yeah.
Hackers certainly aren't using standardized frameworks to plan their attacks. They are innovating constantly.
That's true.
So if our defenders are just like checking boxes on a standardized government list, aren't we going to be completely outmaneuvered?
That is a very valid concern. And it actually brings us to a crucial realization about these frameworks. Standardized technical skills, the kind you can map to a dictionary or test for in a multiple-choice certification exam, they're only half the battle.
Just the baseline.
Exactly, they're the baseline. But relying on them entirely exposes the missing ingredient in modern tech teams, the thing that no framework or textbook can actually teach.
And what that?
Operational resilience.
Operational resilience. I mean, I've heard that phrase thrown around in boardrooms a lot. But what does it actually mean for the practitioner sitting at a keyboard at 2 a.m. trying to stop a breach?
To really understand this, we have to look at the perspective of J.C. Vega. He is a retired U.S. Army colonel who transitioned into the corporate security space, and his argument is just foundational here.
Okay.
He points out that standardized IT skills are easily taught. You can take a reasonably smart person and teach them how a firewall works or, how to run a vulnerability scan.
Right, that's just mechanics.
But Operations cannot be taught in a classroom. You have to learn operations by actually working within an organization, feeling its friction, and understanding its lifeblood.
Because if you don't know what the business actually does to make money, you don't know what you are actually protecting.
That is the core philosophy. Vega emphasizes that you do not maintain a system for the system's sake. You maintain the system for the operation's sake.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, let me give you a concrete example. Imagine a technical defender who is brilliant at their specific security tool, right? They detect a vulnerability in a legacy server and realize it's being probed.
Okay.
Standard technical protocol says, shut the server down immediately to stop the breach.
Makes sense. Stop the bleeding.
But what if that defender doesn't understand the big picture of the business? What if they don't realize that specific outdated server is the only thing keeping the automated manufacturing floor running?
Oh, no.
Right. They shut down the server to stop a potential data leak, but in doing so, they halt millions of dollars of physical production.
So they won the technical battle, but they completely lost the operational war.
Yes.
Ah, okay. It goes back to treating the symptom versus treating the patient. You cured the infection, but killed the host in the process.
Exactly. And there is a massive generational shift happening right now that is making this lack of operational awareness a critical vulnerability. Think about it. Professional, dedicated cybersecurity is really only about 10 to 15 years old as a mature corporate discipline.
Right. Before that, it was just, the IT guy dealing with a virus on your desktop.
Yeah, exactly. So the retiring generation of professionals, the people who built our current enterprise systems, they didn't start their careers in cyber. They couldn't have.
Because it didn't exist.
Right. They started in general IT or business administration or logistics, or they came from the military. They had incredibly diverse backgrounds.
So they knew how businesses worked.
Yes. And because of that, they developed this hard-won operational understanding of how different parts of an organization physically interact. They knew how the warehouse talked to the accounting department.
And the incoming generation is completely different.
Entirely different. Today, you have brilliant young minds who have gone to university specifically for this. They have specialized degrees. They are, quote-unquote, pure cyber.
Right.
But because they have only ever studied the technical mechanisms of defense, they lack that broader operational experience. They haven't spent years learning how the rest of the business actually functions.
It sounds exactly like we're training a generation of highly skilled mechanics who know every single micro component of a car's engine.
Exactly.
Like they can take it apart and put it back together blindfolded, but they have never actually driven the car on a busy highway in a rainstorm.
That's a great analogy.
They know the math behind how the anti-lock brakes work, but they don't know what it physically feels like when the car starts to hydroplane. So the million-dollar question for you, and for leaders everywhere, how do we teach these technical mechanics how to actually drive the car?
Well, to do that, we have to look outside of traditional corporate HR training and look at alternative leadership models.
Okay, where do we look?
One of the most compelling approaches comes from the military, specifically the Coast Guard. John Felker, a former Coast Guard and federal security leader, brings up a tradition that directly addresses this mechanic problem.
What's the tradition?
When cadets graduate from the Coast Guard Academy, they aren't immediately put in charge of the most advanced technical systems on a ship, regardless of how high their grades were.
Makes sense.
Their first assignment is traditionally as a junior officer, doing a wide variety of unglamorous, highly operational tasks.
And they have a very specific, somewhat colorful acronym for this role in the military, right? The SLJO.
Yes, the SLJO, the shitty little jobs officer.
Classic military naming.
Right. It sounds demeaning, but the purpose behind it is actually profound. This isn't just hazing or busy work to build character. The primary purpose of this assignment is to teach them how the ship actually operates.
They have to learn the ropes.
Literally and metaphorically. They handle crew morale, welfare, basic logistics. They learn how to be a deck watch officer. But most importantly, according to Felker, this is where they learn leadership.
Interesting.
They learn how to actually listen to their subordinates, how to integrate feedback from the crew who've been doing this for 20 years, and how to understand the messy human element of keeping a complex operation afloat.
I love that. Because, if you can't manage the human crew and understand the physical limitations of the ship, it doesn't matter how well you understand the navigation software, you're going to crash into a reef.
Exactly.
But so how does this translate to the corporate tech world? We don't have ships. What does a corporate SLJO actually look like for, say, a 22-year-old software engineer hired at a bank?
It looks like mandatory operational rotations. Felker points out that today, cadets graduating from newly minted cyber programs are going straight into specialized roles, completely skipping that foundational phase.
And he thinks that's a mistake.
He believes it is a massive mistake. In a corporate setting, an SLJO phase means taking that brilliant new hire and having them spend a month shadowing the supply chain manager.
Okay.
Or having them sit on the IT help desk for 2 weeks answering password reset calls so they understand the actual friction regular employees face every day.
Oh, that would be humbling.
Very. But if you force them to learn the operational reality of the business first, they are going to be vastly more effective when they eventually step into a high-level technical role.
Okay, but let's be real about the pace of the tech industry for a second.
Hmm.
2 years away from the keyboard in tech is an absolute eternity.
It really is.
If you take a highly trained specialist who understands the absolute bleeding edge of AI threat detection and you send them to go shadow logistics and do manual HR tasks to learn leadership, aren't they going to come back technically obsolete? By the time they finish their rotations, the tech landscape will have completely transformed.
That is the exact counter-argument, and Felker acknowledges it. You cannot afford to let your absolute best technical minds rust. So the compromise he proposes is a structural change to how companies handle career progression.
Which is what?
He advocates for a dual-track system. Organizations need to build two distinct, equally respected pathways for talent.
How does that actually work in practice?
Well, track one is for your pure technical superstars. These are the people who want to stay laser-focused on the evolving AI and quantum landscape. They need to be at the keyboard every single day to stay sharp.
And track two.
Track two is for those who want to blend those technical skills with the business and leadership side, the ones who go through those operational rotations we talked about.
But I mean, corporate structures almost always reward the management track with more money and prestige. That's why technicians end up taking management jobs they hate.
Exactly, which is why the dual track system requires absolute pay parity. You have to allow people to choose their path and support both equally.
So they get paid the same.
Yes. A company should have a distinguished engineer on track. One making the exact same salary and holding the same prestige as a vice president on track two. You stop forcing brilliant technicians into mediocre management roles, and you stop expecting your great operational leaders to be your best coders.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you are listening to this, trying to navigate your own career in this environment, this raises a pretty stark reality about what it actually takes to survive in this industry right now.
It does.
Regardless of which track you choose, the demands are just evolving so fast. There was a reality check shared by an anonymous corporate executive that cuts right through all the modern corporate speak about work-life balance.
Yes, I know the one you're talking about. This executive pointed out an uncomfortable truth. Especially early in your career in this field, this is absolutely not a 9-to-5 job.
That's tough to hear for people who just want to clock in, do good work, and go home.
It is tough, but it's the reality of the battlefield. The attack surface, the technology, the threats, they do not operate on a standard business schedule.
Threat actors don't clock out at 5 p.m.
Exactly. AI models are generating new polymorphic malware variants at 2 in the morning. This executive made it clear that if you are only learning during standard business hours, you will inevitably fall behind.
You just can't keep up.
No, the sheer pace of technological change forces you to be constantly learning, constantly experimenting outside of your assigned standardized tasks.
Which explains why that same executive highlighted a specific phrase as their biggest enterprise-level concern right now. They called it coordination over capability. What does that actually look like inside a failing company?
What it looks like is an organization that looks phenomenal on paper. They have strong programmatic structures, they have implemented the NICE frameworks perfectly, and they have all the right reporting lines on the org chart.
Lots of coordination.
So much coordination. There are endless meetings, beautiful risk reports, clear processes.
Sound like a well-oiled machine.
Until a novel attack hits. Because behind all those meetings and frameworks, they lack deep technical depth. They coordinated the defense perfectly, but they don't actually have the capability to execute it against a threat they haven't seen before.
Oh.
This illusion of coordination over capability doesn't show up in a quarterly board presentation. It only manifests in the real world when it's too late, as missed threat detections, incredibly slow response times, and catastrophic breaches.
So you can have all the meetings you want, but if the person at the keyboard doesn't intuitively understand how the malware is moving through the system, the company's going down.
Precisely, which is why this executive isolated the ultimate differentiator. You can teach someone the tools, you can map their skills to a framework, but the one thing that separates the truly invaluable professionals from everyone else is curiosity.
Because you cannot manufacture curiosity.
You can't. You cannot teach someone to care enough to go deeper on their own time. Curiosity is the actual engine of operational resilience.
How so?
Think about it. A standard framework-trained defender sees a strange IP address probing their network, and they simply block it. They followed the rules.
Job done.
Right. But a curious defender blocks the IP address and then wonders, Why was that specific address probing that specific server in the first place?
Right.
They pull the thread.
They investigate.
Yeah, they walk over to the logistics team to see if anything unusual is happening on their end. They build that operational context naturally, not because a manager told them to, but because they actually want to know how the whole system works.
So synthesizing everything we've covered today, the tech world is finally waking up. Leaders are moving past the initial panic of simply screaming for more headcount, and they're realizing that defending the future of business is about a complex alchemy of skills.
It really is.
It requires a baseline of standardized technical ability so we're all speaking the same language. But more importantly, it requires the operational wisdom to know what you are defending, the Coast Guard-style leadership to listen and guide a team, and above all, that unmanufacturable curiosity to keep pulling the thread when everyone else is clocked out.
And this leaves us with a critical question to consider as we look ahead. We've established that artificial intelligence is the catalyst forcing us to constantly learn and evolve our skills, right?
Yeah.
But what happens when AI itself becomes capable of standardizing and mapping these very operational behaviors?
Oh, wow.
In a near future where an AI agent masters both the technical tools and the operational frameworks of your specific business, will that uniquely human, unmanufacturable curiosity be the only real job security you have left?
Wow. That is a heavy but vital thought to leave on. Thank you all for joining us here at Techdaily.ai today. Keep pulling those threads, keep asking why, and most importantly, stay curious. We'll catch you next time.